Okay, now where this ray idea of dealing with light comes in handy is when we start talking about something that you have experience with, and that is the idea of reflection. So if you have a surface like this, and we have a light wave coming towards the surface like this, again, I'm drawing my wave fronts as equally spaced apart because we're going to assume this is a constant color light, so it has a constant wavelength. So what happens here is, if I were to draw what would happen when this wave bounced off of the surface, I'd have to draw, the wave has to stay coherent. What that means is that the wave fronts have to touch each other. They have to be one continuous wave front. And so the only way to do that is if I draw something that looks like this. And geometrically, you could show that if I drew the ray of light, the angle that it would come out at would be the same as the angle that it came in at. This is what's called the law of reflection, but in order to say that, my drawing is not very good at all. It should show these two rays being perpendicular to each other, or sorry, being the same angle from each other. Let me try that again. Now, to deal with reflection, so I'm going to draw a simpler picture that doesn't have all the wave fronts on it. The way that we measure our angles when we're doing the optics calculations is we draw something here. Hey guys. We draw something here up and down. We call this the normal line. Anybody remember what normal means? We've talked about normal before. Well,
wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
The two rays are perpendicular, correct?
They're not necessarily perpendicular. It's that this angle is the same as that angle. Yeah, my picture is not very good at all, is it?
It's not. I was just wondering.
Maybe we should just cancel this lesson.
We're doing all right.
Do you need to stop your video and restart it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
All right, here's the idea though. This normal line, we've talked about, remember when we talked about normal force? What was normal force? It does have to do with you being on the ground.
Oh, it's the force up.
It points up, right? And do you remember what we defined mathematically? The term normal means something very specific. If you have a surface and the force points up, what's the relationship between those two things? They're perpendicular. The word normal means perpendicular. The way that we're always going to deal with all of our measurements of angles when we deal with optics is with this idea called a normal line. Normal means perpendicular. It's a line perpendicular to the surface. And we're going to measure two angles that we're going to call theta I and theta R. Those stand for the angle of incidence. So the angle between the ray and the normal when it's coming at the mirror versus the angle of reflection. Yes, and this thing called the law of reflection says that, again, we could prove this not with this diagram, but if I drew this diagram correctly, we could do a geometric proof that I'm going to spare you from, that would prove that that the law of reflection would have to be true. But the law of reflection says that the angle of incidence is always equal to the angle of reflection.